We often think of giving birth as this straightforward journey, but let's be real, like any big life event, sometimes there are unexpected detours. Today, we're going to talk about some of those detours, the complications that can pop up during labor. So let's just dive right in because understanding what can happen is really the best way to appreciate how incredibly skilled and prepared medical teams are to handle it.
Okay, so that sounds pretty intense, doesn't it? And it's a direct quote from our source material. It really gets to the point. The stakes are high, and time is absolutely critical. This one sentence perfectly captures the seriousness of what we're about to discuss.
And this is the most important part of the whole conversation. Medical teams train for these exact moments, relentlessly. Every single potential complication has a clear, practiced plan designed to get the best possible outcome for both mom and baby. That expertise, that's the real story here.
All right, so let's start with two really key parts of the baby's world before birth. You've got the umbilical cord, their lifeline, and the amniotic fluid, their entire environment. First up is something called a prolapsed umbilical cord. Just imagine the baby's lifeline, that cord, slipping out ahead of them. You can see the danger right away. The baby's own body can press down and pinch that lifeline shut, which cuts off their oxygen. This is why it is a true time-is-everything medical emergency. So what makes this more likely to happen? Well, basically, certain situations can create just enough space for the cord to slip through. Like if the water breaks before the baby's head is settled deep in the pelvis, or if the baby is in a feet-first breech position. See, a baby's head usually acts like a perfect cork in the bottle. But when the feet or bottom are coming first, there can be little gaps, an escape route for the cord. Okay, let's put ourselves right in that room for a second. This is a classic clinical training scenario. A nurse sees it, confirms a prolapsed cord. What is the absolute number one, very first thing they have to do? This is it. The single most important, immediate action is manual. A nurse will literally insert their hand and physically hold the baby's head or body up and away from that cord to get the blood flowing again. And they will hold that exact position without moving all the way until the baby is safely delivered. So while that one person is physically holding the baby off the cord, this calm, coordinated response just explodes into action around them. The team is called in, the mother is repositioned to let gravity help out, and everything is prepped for an immediate birth, which is usually a C-section. It's a pretty amazing example of a team just clicking into place. Now let's switch gears from the baby's lifeline to their environment. We're looking at what's known as meconium-stained amniotic fluid. To put it simply, meconium is the baby's first poop, and sometimes they have it before they're born. Now, it can just be a sign that they're full term and ready to go, but it can also be a red flag for fetal stress. So the team's job is to figure out what's going on. They'll look at the color and thickness of the fluid for sure. But the most important thing they do is watch that fetal heart rate monitor like a hawk. If they see a pattern like this one, a sharp, sudden dip in the heart rate called a deceleration, that's a major clue that the baby might be in distress. So what happens next? Well, it's all about being prepared. The team documents everything, and here's the key step. They call the neonatal resuscitation team to be there for the birth. They're basically saying, hey, we might have an issue here, so let's get the baby experts in the room ready to go the second this baby arrives. It ensures a totally seamless handoff of care. Okay, moving on. Our next group of complications isn't about the baby's lifeline or environment, but about the engine of labor itself, the contractions, and just the overall pace of things. The official medical term is dystocia, but you can just think of it as dysfunctional labor. It basically means that for one reason or another, the normal, steady progress of labor just stalls out. Now, what's really interesting is that dysfunctional labor can go one of two ways. On one side, you have hypotonic labor, where the contractions are just too weak or too far apart to get the job done. But then you have hypertonic labor. This is like an engine revving in neutral. The contractions are frequent, they're intense, they're painful, but they're all uncoordinated and they aren't actually helping the cervix to open. So here's another really common scenario that can cause labor to stall out. The mother is having terrible back pain, and it turns out the baby is sunny side up or occiput posterior. It can really slow things down. So what's a simple non-medical thing that can actually help get things moving again? As you can see, the first suggestion is just changing position, specifically getting on hands and knees. This uses gravity to help encourage the baby to rotate into a better position, which can relieve that back pain and get labor back on track.
A lot of the solutions are supportive and simple, They focus on comfort, hydration, and movement. Now, let's look at the complete opposite of stalled labor, precipitous labor. This is when everything happens incredibly fast. We're talking less than 3 hours from the very first contraction to birth. And while a fast labor might sound like a dream come true, it actually comes with its own set of risks. The contractions can be so intense that they reduce oxygen flow to the baby, and the speed of it all can cause trauma to both the mother and the baby. The medical team's whole job here is to try and manage that speed and control the birth to prevent injuries. Finally, we're going to touch on a couple of very serious, but also very rare emergencies. These are the moments where that expert training we mentioned at the very beginning becomes absolutely crucial. And I really want to pause here for a second. Before we even define these next two complications, it is so important to emphasize just how rare they are. We are talking about true medical rarities, but they are things that teams are prepared to manage with swift, decisive action if they ever do happen. A uterine rupture is, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, a tear in the wall of the uterus. It's most often linked to a scar from a previous C-section. The classic signs are a sudden, sharp, tearing pain and an immediate, drastic change in the baby's heart rate, which signals that something is very wrong. An amniotic fluid embolism is one of the most unpredictable and dangerous complications in all of medicine. It's when amniotic fluid somehow gets into the mother's bloodstream and it triggers this massive system-wide reaction, almost like a severe allergic reaction that causes sudden breathing problems and circulatory collapse. For either of those emergencies, the response is immediate and total. It's a true all-hands-on-deck situation. The goal is to stabilize the mother with oxygen, fluids, blood, whatever it takes, while at the exact same time preparing for an immediate emergency C-section to deliver the baby and fix the underlying crisis. Which really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Labor is a natural process, but it happens in a world where the unexpected is always possible. Seeing these protocols and the calm, decisive actions of medical teams, it just highlights how preparation can transform a potential crisis into a manageable event. It makes you think, right? In any high-stakes situation, what is the true value of being prepared?